Thank you for joining us today for the VU Ltd Practical Guides for Getting Back to Work series. The focus of today's webinar is on marketing and the art of hustle. I'm Victor Ubogu, founder of VU Ltd, a sports travel and hospitality business. Alongside me are Paul Williamson. In the past 25 years, Paul has worked within some of the world's biggest agencies and for some of the largest international B2B brands. For the past 15 years, he has led the award-winning Realia Marketing agency, responsible for the development and implementation of a number of high-profile communications programs, including several global rebrands, and is the inaugural chair of the PRCA marcomms group. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Vic. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for coming. Ian Sutcliffe. Ian is co-founder of Valentis, an advisory business, specializing in providing strategic support to organizations looking to grow. Ian has spent 30 years in the insurance and risk management market, with the last 20 years in senior leadership roles, focusing on client acquisition and business development. Ian has 6 children, including triplets, and enjoys running and trying to surf. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Vic. Hi, morning, afternoon, everybody. Sorry, afternoon, everybody.
As well as my former rugby teammate in England, Martin Corrie, who is struggling with his internet as he keeps disappearing in and out. Martin captained Leicester, England, and the British and Irish Lions, a Rugby World Cup winner in 2003. He's a true rugby legend. He is currently a regional vice president of Salesforce. Hi, Martin.
Hey, Vic. And so just for everyone, apologies if I turn the video off. I am struggling with my internet. So if you can't hear me, I'll just switch the video off and you'll just have to assume that it's me behind the blank screen.
We can recognize your voice, so you're all good. You're all good. At this point, we don't know that we know that live events will be back and running from October with reduced number of fans and attendance. In the interim, I've had to adapt from sports travel and hospitality to bulk selling PPE, masks, gloves, sanitizers, health and safety e-training products, as well as Teacup, a self-reflective well-being app. Compared to live sporting events, it's not that exciting, but I've had to adapt. Our focus today is on sales and marketing teams. Historically, 2 functions that tolerate rather than embrace each other. It's now the time for sales and marketing to actually work together for the greater good. Martin, from your experience of playing in high performance teams, how would you get these 2 separate functions to work together?
Yeah, I think when you talk about tolerate rather than embrace, it immediately sends me back to, when we first started playing Vix and the old backs and forwards in rugby. It was there was rivalry and banter. And back in the day, it was very much the forwards worked hard to win the ball, gave it to the backs who invariably knocked it on or meant that you had to do your job of win it again. I think as rugby's involved and all the great sides now, the backs and the forwards, they work together as one team. I think this is where we're going with sales and marketing. Is sales and marketing have to work together as one team and be interchangeable. Certainly that's what I've seen in my best, in the best companies that I've worked for. And in order to do that, what it comes under is, everyone's got to work under, the one banner, and it's how big the why is really, and a lot of it is down to the commonality of purpose. If that purpose is big enough, then it doesn't matter who's scoring the tries in the corner. It's the fact that the whole team has worked together to score the try, and I see a lot of similarities between that and rugby and the marketing and sales function in certainly the best businesses that I've seen.
Oh, thank you, Martin. I mean, any examples from from Australia?
Well, it's the adaptability, I guess, is, you can have all the plans, and it's always good going back to the big games and going back to, I guess, the World Cup final in 2003. We went out to win the World Cup, and that was our commonality of purpose. But also as well, then you have the strict goals and you have the objectives underneath that. And so one of ours was, right, we're going to have the best defence, and we called it the white wall. Nobody runs through our white wall. Go to the defence has been brilliant all the way through the World Cup, and then we get to the final, and we're so confident with our defensive line. 5 minutes into the game, there's Australia have an attacking scrum, but we're confident with our white wall. What we didn't look at is their left wing, Lottie Takiri, 6'5", our right wing, and his opposite number, Jason Robinson, was, if I'm being generous, he's 5'8". So there was a big mismatch, and as soon as they got the ball, Larkham kicks the ball straight over the top, and it's a mismatch, and Lottie Takiri plucks the ball out the air and scores. Now, if we didn't have that commonality of purpose, and there'd start to be fractions breaking up, but because we knew it, and it was just about, this is our process, this is our function, this is what we do. It didn't have a destabilizing effect, whereas I have been in teams where something like that would have a catastrophic effect on the team and cause disharmony in the ranks.
Wow, that's a great example. But moving on to Paul, as companies sort of look to reopen for business, what challenges do you think their marketing teams face today?
I think there's a few challenges inevitably. I think most marketing teams are going to be faced with probably less resource, probably less budget, and certainly more kind of scrutiny and more expectation from their board or from their boss. So I think going back to what the point Martin made, you need to have a commonality of purpose and a clear strategy, but you also need to ensure that you're agile enough to be able to face what's in front of you. So there's a requirement for them to deliver campaigns that drive the bottom line. There's a requirement for them to better support the sales process and actually find mates in the backs with the salespeople, and protect and enhance the brand. And sometimes protecting and enhancing the brand and selling can be two very, very different things. So they've got a big job. I think the first one is to understand what good looks like now, understand what the business expects from them, and equally what you can do to support the business, and be very explicit about that. I think you need to, if you haven't before, now's the time to start to build the advocacy within the internal stakeholders. So, what is the board's spoken agenda, but what's their unspoken agenda? Because very often they won't tell you everything unless you ask. And how do you support the other functions? How do you support sales? How do you communicate, help HR communicate? How do you help ops and finance communicate that's going to make their life easier and better throughout this? I think for me, the big thing is about this kind of laser focus on the things that you're brilliant at. So demonstrate and reinforce what you're brilliant at, and demonstrate and reinforce the value in your offer. And then to move on to what Martin can do for you, how do you ensure that you sort of measure that effectiveness? There's been a lot of discussion around diversifying and pivoting, and I think Victor, done a really great job of diversifying. You've taken what's your core brand and your core capability, which is pulling people together, and transitioned it into this online webinar series, as opposed to boys in the bar drinking beer and enjoying the rugby. So you've held on to what you're great at and been able to diversify it. True pivoting, I think, is a dangerous thing, because if you fail, you pivot and fail, you actually damage the one good thing in your brand that you're known for doing brilliantly. So just be a bit careful and clear about that. I think be clear, be compelling, try to be indispensable. Us as an organisation has tried to be indispensable throughout all of this. And those big ads at the beginning of all this about we're all in it together, no one cares. Actually, what they care about is your ability to make a difference. People care about outputs right now rather than inputs. I think for me, the final thing is actually about bravery, and people really look for leaders at times like this. You know, the natural inclination is to kind of go hide, but for me, the hidden always get found and the brave always get followed. So, you know, being brave and remaining calm and calculated, even when Lottie Takiri scores in the first 3 minutes, you know, even when the noise in the stadium is loud and intimidating and overwhelming, you need to be brave and you need to sort of stand up and be counted, because if you hide, they will find you.
Thanks, Paul, for that. That's quite useful, very useful. But in terms of practical solutions, I mean, what have you got anything else to add on that?
I think
people actually go out and do it.
I think doing it is really important. Actually, I think one of the challenges right now is that there's so much anxiety and uncertainty that it does lead you to procrastinate a little bit too much. And very often you spend as much time planning as you do executing. So I think don't procrastinate. Do be agile. Deliver things quickly. Deliver things brilliantly. If they fail, at least you failed fast, and that enables you to learn and succeed a bit quicker. I think, again, going back to the point around bravery, you know, try new creative ideas. No one's expecting miracles right now. So that does give you an opportunity to be inventive, to try new things, but also do the basics well. We're always looking for that golden bullet, but actually you really should look to do the basics well. We all know whenever we have a conversation with a client or a customer, they often say, "I didn't know you did that." So make sure that you cross-sell, make sure that you upsell, and you remain front of mind. So by all means, be creative and be exciting and be different, but don't forget to tick the basic boxes. And I think, you know, moving on to what Ian's going to talk about in terms of the art of the hustle, give them something they haven't thought of yet. You hire organizations and you keep organizations for different things. You keep people because because you like them and they're good people and you feel comfortable with them and all of that. That's not why you hire an organization. You hire an organization because they give you the game changer idea you haven't thought of yet.
Thanks, Paul. You know, so the marketing team has allowed their creative juices to flow, and the inquiries are flooding in. Ian, can you give us an insight into how the sales team can convert these inquiries into firm sales?
Yeah, sure, Vic. And I think it's really important that the sales team are engaged in the planning and preparation of the marketing messages. Paul and I have worked together for a number of years, both when his agency was consulting with my business, and actually now on a couple of clients. And we have some really different ideas, but we take the best of them both, and we do create something a little bit different. And so what you shouldn't be doing is letting the marketing people come up with the ideas, and then when the leads start dropping into the inbox, is pick them up as a sales team. You need to be working together, and that's the most important thing, because you will then, as a sales team, understand what is being sold through the messaging. I think it's important to be creative. You talked about adaptability, Vic, being willing to adapt. I agree with Paul that, you know, a mass pivot and in terms of what your business does now is quite dangerous unless you've got no other alternative. But being willing to adapt, which leads into collaboration. So I'll talk, when we talk a little bit about the art of hustle, collaboration will be key. You know, everybody's business has changed in some way over the past 3 to 4 months, either positively or negatively. I'll come back to this as well. And so you've now got something different to offer other people, because they've got a change and you've got a resource or a facility that they can use, or vice versa. But in terms of if we think about the enquiries dropping into the inbox from the marketing campaign, then there are three key things I think that we should be doing as organizations. And I'm going to keep it really, really simple here because it's something Paul mentioned. It's about doing stuff, it's taking action. The single biggest failure will come from not doing it or not doing it quickly enough. So I've picked three things really for this response. Number one is to prioritize sales by scheduling time to focus on selling. And I'll expand on each of these in a moment. The second is to set targets for the business and the individuals in responding to those enquiries. And the third is to track progress and focus on the most likely to convert. I'm sure Martin will have a view on that with his Salesforce background. So prioritizing sales, biggest challenge for most small to medium-sized businesses is that they don't usually have a dedicated sales team. They use people that are actually tasked with doing other things. They have other responsibilities. They might look after client accounts that's existing business. They may run an operation. You know, they might be the managing director and they've got a million other things to do. What we've got to do as organizations is make sure those people have time to do the selling, have time to pick the phone up and make the outbound call. We also need to make sure they know what they're selling, which is why it's important they're involved in the creative messaging preparation piece as well. And also they need to have the skills to convert a sale. So there's no point in giving somebody an inquiry if they don't know how to convert that into a sale. And you know, and actually one of the simplest things you can do is actually ask for the sale. You know, don't be back to Paul's point about being brave. Don't be shy. Don't be retiring about it. Ask for the sale. Ask what you need to do to get the sale over the line. Set targets. So every business and every individual needs to have targets to know where they are and whether they're on track to deliver against expectations. It's fine for you as a business to have expectations about the sales, but if the people delivering them don't know what they are or how they're performing or how their bit contributes to the greater target, then you're nowhere, frankly. And then tracking progress. So sales is a numbers game. The more inquiries you have, the more you're likely to convert them, assuming that you are outbound calling and trying to convert that. Provided you've allocated the time and you've got the skills to convert, then the more you have, the more you'll succeed. Every business should track the sales performance and know exactly how many opportunities they've got, the value of their pipeline, which will play to the Salesforce piece. And the exact status of each individual opportunity and who's doing what with it next. By tracking it in this way, you can decide where to spend your precious time and resource in terms of moving an opportunity forward and hopefully converting the best opportunities for you. So is it the right type of prospect? Is it the right number of jobs, whatever it is you sell, widgets or consulting services? Is it the right fit? And does it, you know, is it profitable? Doesn't need to be the most profitable, but is it profitable and is it nice work for you? It's equally as important to decide which opportunities you don't want to pursue. Drop them quickly and don't waste time on them. So really that's my view about, I suppose, practical things you should be doing once the inquiries start to drop in. We can talk a little bit later about creating the opportunities separately.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the inquiries don't come flooding in there, and the sales teams have to get out and hustle for business. I know from my experience at VU, this is a much tougher route, and I mean Kevin's made quite a good point in the chat, and I was going to read this. With the post-pandemic challenge across business to deliver more with less, and I'm trying to see it. Yeah, well, and to do it better and quicker. Is it now time to dispense of all organizational silos and build collaborative cross-functional teams? So is rapidly thinking organizations the big change before you can attempt the other items in the backlog?
I think I'll pick up a bit of that if I may. I think in a utopian world, everybody should recognize that they have a contribution to sales and marketing. Just because you work in the accounts department or the operations department doesn't mean that you don't touch your customer in some way. So I think that that philosophy of presenting your brand in the best light should transcend all functions. I think right now, trying to do big changes and create collaborative functional teams that weren't there before is tough. But what you can do is start the process by building at a campaign level. So agree that you're going to sell a particular product or service, and actually build a collaborative team to develop that specific campaign. Then there's much less risk, and actually it's much more agile. You know, the challenge, of course, is the more people you throw into something, the slower it becomes. So I think I'd be a little bit careful about that, but certainly going forward, you know, everybody should recognise that they have a role to play in protecting and enhancing the brand.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. I think you can make, you know, lots of businesses have made huge steps because they had no choice in terms of home working or changing the way that they operate to meet, you know, COVID secure guidelines. The last thing you want to be doing, I think, is changing the rest of your business model if you don't need to. Actually, what you'll find in terms of sales, specifically sales, is just taking small steps. You know, if you make 2 outbound calls in the morning before you start doing whatever else it is you're going to be doing, by the end of the week, you've made 10 outbound calls, which is probably 10 more than you made last week. You will secure a sale out of those 10 in all likelihood at some point in the future. So taking small steps is probably a better way to look at it. But over time, I think you should work towards cross-functional teams, but it's taken most businesses decades to build the silos. So you've got to break them down slowly and with the engagement of the people involved.
If I can add to that, it is, so yeah, as businesses grow, silos, you know, I'm not a fan of silos, but it's the natural evolution of businesses. Businesses will grow, silos will develop, but it is, and the most important factor, and Kevin, you've mentioned it, it is that collaboration between every silo, which becomes crucial. And I think you need, with it all, and we go back to our sporting analogy, Vic, it becomes in a team exactly the same as a business. It's everyone needs to know their role, but more importantly, how important their role is to the commonality of that purpose. So when we're looking at it, it becomes, if I'm in marketing, then I know how important my role is for the sales. Exactly the same with service. It's one of my often used phrases is, you know, in England, if you have, there's a welder, and he says, what does he do for a living? He's just a welder. If you ask a Japanese welder, what does he do? He's a shipbuilder. And so you've got to know how important your role is for the greater good, and keep going back to that commonality of purpose.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. So Vic, you asked about the hustle, didn't you, and the art of hustle, and you know, in my world of insurance claims, which is not the most thrilling, I can assure you, most businesses in the supply chain sit and wait for insurance companies to invite them to tender for their work, and it's total madness. If you wait to be invited to tender, you'll be pitching against all your competitors. They will be undercutting you, and you'll be undercutting them on price. And it's just a waste of time. Now, often the biggest contracts come from tenders, so you need to decide which part of the market you want to be in. And I'm not saying you shouldn't tender for that work, but you should tender for it knowing that you've been invited along with everybody else that does what you do. The alternative is what I talk to my clients about, and I think we should be doing more of this in the current circumstance. And I call it the art of hustle, but it's the creation of opportunities that wouldn't otherwise exist. And it's the essential skill of entrepreneurs. So they leverage their network in order to find and create opportunities. So somebody might have an opportunity that's unrelated to what I do, but if I can spot it and I can contact them and I can offer something that my organization does, then you've got an opportunity that nobody else is competing for, because you're not going to invite your competitors and they're not going to invite your competitors. So even going back 150 years, Abraham Lincoln said, all good things come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. So if you don't hustle, you're being left the rubbish, without a doubt. And so just thinking about the networks and how you spot these opportunities. 15 years or so ago, I worked with a consultant who told me to start building my network as I'd come to rely on it for the future. And to be honest, I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Spent a bit more time with him and began to understand that it is about everybody you have worked with, that you know, that you've been introduced to, are all part of your network. And as long as you can pick the phone up with them and have a conversation, you've got the opportunity to collaborate. What we have now in terms of network, a way to record your network is LinkedIn. I mean, you can use any of the other social media platforms, but from a business to business perspective, even if you don't use it for your ads or for post or whatever else, just recording all your contacts in one single place gives you a really clear view of who you are connected to. And I've got a few ideas here about how you would build and maintain that network. I'll be fairly snappy with these, but connect with everybody that you meet with face to face or virtually via Zoom. You know, go back through the contacts in your phone book and emails and people that you've worked with or known before, even if you haven't been in touch with them for a while. Connect with them on LinkedIn. If you spot an interesting post or read an article that's relative to your business or you think you can add value to, then connect with them. And send them a message. Ask them if you can have a call. Explain you think there's a business opportunity. I'm not talking about LinkedIn stalking here, but it is where you think there is a genuine opportunity. And you know what? Some people will not come back to you, but on the whole, I find that they do come back to you. Put calls into people that you haven't spoken to for a while. See how they are. It's a prime opportunity now. See how they are. See how the family is. See what they're up to business-wise. There might be an opportunity that comes your way. I follow clients, I follow competitors, I follow companies in the group of businesses that my clients work for. I follow prospects. I follow organizations that are in adjacent markets to the ones I'm in and the ones my clients are in. Because the more and more you can see people posting and things that they're doing, the more ideas you will have to create an opportunity or to collaborate with somebody. And so I spend a bit of time every day just looking at my feed, see who's there, see what they're doing, and I make contact if I think there's an opportunity. One of the most valuable ways to generate a sale is referral. Asking for a referral. Paul and I refer each other to people. Paul's probably been more successful for me so far because I've got 2 clients now that he's referred me to. So thank you, Paul. But I wouldn't have those opportunities without that referral. So why not make that, no, Paul's not referring 3 of my competitors to that client. He's only referring me. So if you can create the opportunity, you're not competing with anybody. I think the 2 prime examples of hustle I can give you just to conclude there. This webinar is only happening because of a hustle of some form. So Vic, I think you spoke to Paul about subject ideas a few weeks ago. Paul introduced me to you, Vic. Vic and I had a call and I've introduced him to 3 other people. 1 person has already presented on an earlier seminar or webinar. The other 2 might be involved in some of your webinars going forward. Vic might then. I know one of them is listening now. So hi Nick. Because Vic and I spoke, I now have an audience with people that are looking at this webinar. And whilst nothing may ever come of it, I may find that I do business with one or more people in the future just because we've had this opportunity to talk. Now, I haven't waited to be invited to tender to jump onto this webinar and present myself. So, it is a hustle. It is a creation of an opportunity that wouldn't otherwise have existed. The second hustle really is from a Valentis perspective. For my business, we haven't ever pitched for any work through a tender process. We haven't waited to be invited to tender. Everything that we do is through outbound calling and is through referrals from people. And as a consequence, we've never really had to pitch against any competitors. And you've always got to negotiate on price because the client will always want best value. But actually, I'm not cutting my rates just to be lower than somebody else that wants to do the job as well. So they're two prime examples, I think, of hustles.
Thank you, Ian. As you mentioned, I mean, tracking your pipeline is quite important. So that sort of falls into the CRM, CRM systems, quite a crucial part of the sales and marketing mix. There's no point spending all that money on marketing and effort on sales if your pipeline data is not properly tracked and managed. There are plenty of systems in the marketplace, and of course, Salesforce is a leader in that field. But Martin, how does Salesforce complement this?
Well, I'm hoping you can still hear me. I've turned my camera off and ironically, when I'm talking about Salesforce and going into a digital age where everyone and everything is connected, including me, even in this patchy remote area of North Yorkshire, but also, the way we interact with our customers and their expectations have also followed suit. So, what is Salesforce? It's a series of easy to use cloud-based business applications, allowing you to stay connected to your customers, prospects, partners, and even the wider community. Salesforce it's the world's #1 CRM platform, enabling businesses to sell, service, market to their customers like they've never done before. And in these challenging times, we're all needing just a little bit more. And when I'm listening to this webinar and we're hearing the desire and the need for agility, adaptation, collaboration, the Salesforce customer success platform allows you to do that, one with your customers and how you operate, but also as well, and more importantly, I believe, with your internal team.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So how has lockdown impacted on your business, and have you had to change how you operate?
So again, in terms of our business function, Salesforce lives in the cloud. So our business function.
Martin, you've gone quiet.
Remote working.
You're back.
Am I back? I'll tell you what, I'll turn this off and hopefully that allows the connection. Just wave at me, Vic, if you can't hear me. But so just to go back. So in terms of what our business function is, Salesforce lives in the cloud, and our business function has remained unchanged, and we're able to switch from the office to remote working without it affecting our day-to-day. But what we have lived through is the dramatic effect it's had on our customers. So with our platform, we've been able to develop a series of products and services just to help our customers. And what we're finding is going through these times, everyone's at different stages. There's still some in the stabilizing, how the hell do we get our heads around this situation of spinning up a remote workforce. Some are looking at how do we plan now to reopen our offices, and then there's even others saying, okay, then in whatever this new normal looks like, how are we going to grow, and how are we going to maximize ourselves as a business in this stage? So, what we have to do is we are now looking and we've developed this product called work.com, which we're able to assist our customers in whichever phase they're in at the moment. I hope you've heard that okay.
Yeah, we have, and thank you for that, Martin. I mean, during lockdown, there's been a huge spike in activity on social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, how do you stand out from the crowd, especially when money's tight? Paul, perhaps you can comment on this.
Yeah, I think using free for channels like social media is an inevitable default when money is tight. The challenge is, of course, that everybody's doing the same thing, and I think it goes back to that clarity of purpose. It goes back to being brave, being agile, being creative, not losing sight of what your brand stands for, but also just being prepared to try things that you've not tried before. Social media is a really, really useful tool, of course it is, but it's not the only one. And I think, you know, we're working with your database, trying to explode some of those silos where we know people only buy one thing from you because that's all they've ever done. Explode the silos by showing what else you can do. Depending on the business that you're in, you know, radio listenership has exploded over the course of the last 20 weeks. So think slightly outside of the box as well, and certainly digital radio, as an example, is a really, really cost-effective way of reaching people. So I think there's a natural default to go to social because it's either free or relatively inexpensive if you want to advertise on it. But you better make sure that you're really clear about what your expectation is. You create some compelling communication, and again you track it. None of this is rocket science, but don't overemphasize the importance of it in conjunction with all of the other stuff that you do. And actually talk, like Ian and Martin have both said, you know, talk to your customers. But, you know, yes, we want to win new ones, but let's make sure that we solidify the ones that we've already got.
I think that's a fair point, actually. The easiest sell is usually selling more to an existing client that likes what you already do. So it might be more of the same. It might be new products or services to existing customers. It's much easier to get them to buy something than it is to win a new customer with a new service, unless you've got a warm referral. And I think my view is the same as Paul. I think these all need to complement each other. Don't do one over the other. You should have some social media coverage. You've got to stand out from those that are just posting about the same as everybody else. So it needs to be interesting. It needs to be bold. But there is no substitute for picking up the phone and talking to the people that you know. People do business with people, not with social media platforms in business to business. You know, you can see what people are doing, they can see what you're doing, but actually pick up the phone and talk to them about it. You're much more likely to get a warm reception, and you're much more likely to get the opportunity to collaborate and win some business.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps jump back up. Well, then one of the points which Ian just made about in terms of certainly where we're seeing our business, it is once you've built up that level of trust with your existing customers, then that reselling and upselling in your existing customer base, I think that's certainly what where I'm seeing the trend now, where the prospects are, look, you need to build up that level of trust, and that becomes a much harder journey to go through, especially in these times.
Thank you, guys. I think we're just about out of time. So, I mean, the key points that I'll be taking away from today's webinar are: engage the sales team in the marketing messages, prioritize sales, track sales, build your network. A commonality of purpose is quite important. Upselling to your current customer base. And communication, be brave, just do it, as Paul put it. Thank you to Paul, Ian, and Martin for sharing your experience and practical advice. Thank you all for attending. I'll email a link of today's webinar. It would be great to get your feedback, and please share with your colleagues. The webinar video will also be posted on YouTube and Instagram TV. It will also appear as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other platforms. If you found it useful, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to be taking a break from webinars, and we'll be back in September. Details of our program will be announced during August. My personal thanks to Paul Williamson of Realia Marketing, who gave me the idea for these series of webinars. Ian Sutcliffe of Valensis Advisory, who gave me some useful practical advice on the series, as well as recommending some guests. And of course, Martin as well for joining us today. Thank you and goodbye.